Oh, hold on.
Uh,
I think we might need to start again. Hello, Ammar.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
How we going?
I think we've started.
We started, man. We need some sponsorship for this stuff, so we can be better at this. You guys know anybody? Hook us up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, here we are, Sunday evening. You and me chatting about Formula One. Best way to spend a weekend. I'm so happy to have you here, as usual.
I am too. I am too. And welcome to all the 5 people that have decided to join us.
I'm telling you, this is a great way to spend your Sunday evening. And today we have an actual topic to talk about as well. Something that I know you really
No
want to
way.
talk about.
Is this it? Is this it?
Yeah, it
Is this
might be. Have you
it?
got your cup of Ferrari tears?
I don't. You know what? I upgraded here.
Did you? Oh yeah, I want
So
to see
for the
your new
live
cup.
audience pleasure, like I have upgraded. By the way, this is well, it's kind of branded, but it's not really branded.
Oh wow.
I'm taking whatever sponsorships are available.
Is this
To
are these Tifosi tears that you take with you when you're running around, like rather than just having a cup
Yes,
of tea,
yes, they are.
right?
Tifositears.com, everybody,
For endurance. Um,
for endurance. Yeah, man. I don't know what to do, man. And so what do you want to do? You want to talk about this unsanctioned test, right?
but it is sanctioned, isn't it? Because they've got.
I mean, come on, really?
Oh,
Is
okay. No,
it?
no, no. Let's start with an argument. Let's go for it. Why is it unsanctioned, Amar? Hit me.
No, I'm just kidding. I know it is sanctioned.
Oh,
Let's
okay.
go.
Well, that was because
It's filming day. I mean,
that was a weird
you
way to
know.
start.
No, well, we lead the league in weird. So how about that?
Yeah. So anyway, so this week, Ferrari realizing that they have not had the best half a season so far in 2025, despite coming close to winning the constructors championship last year, have turned up to use their second of two filming days to evaluate a new rear suspension.
Hmm.
We're going to have a little chat about the technicalities of that and what we think that means in terms of Ferrari going forward. But look, first of all, Amar, when you hear the word Ferrari upgrade in the middle of the season, what do you think?
I think that you're trying to fill up my tifositeers.com water bottle at this point. Hey, listen, man. We'll get into the technical stuff, but Chez, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a guarantee. I guarantee that this will work. I guarantee that these upgrades are finally going to work because of no technical reason. It's very simple. What are we at? We're at race 13 now coming up, so half the season is over, right? Okay. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some smart math that could suggest that Ferrari could still win both championships, right? But let's put aside the drivers, right? Because that's a different topic for another day. But let's just say by some weird circumstance that Ferrari have a shot at winning the constructors, which I really don't believe they do. But yeah, I think the math would have to be something like Ferrari would have to finish 1-2 in every remaining race, and including I think the three sprints that are there, and then McLaren would have to flub it up at some point, aka it would have to be a Rosberg Hamilton kind of situation, which maybe it is possible. I don't think it's possible with the course. So all of that is to say, Shez, that these upgrades will work now because it is too late to do anything this season. Therefore, the upgrades would work. Look, my headphones can't stay up. It's so hot in here with my hot take, but that's so I would say that it's gonna work because that's what Ferrari do. That's what they did last year too. Is that they gave us hope towards the end of season and screwed it up this year. So yeah, there's the hot take for you.
Okay, so your assumption is that it's going to work because fate would make it work because
Exactly,
Ferrari don't need it.
exactly.
Okay, well,
It's the joke.
yeah, okay, I take your point. But for me, like, if they don't win a constructors, if they don't win a drivers, it doesn't matter. I just want them to win a couple of races. I want them to be in there fighting
Uh,
because if nothing
why?
else, having four teams up there. Actually gunning for wins is what Formula One is all about. It's what we were promised in 2025, and we were so cruelly denied by Ferrari's own inadequacies, really.
99%.
But more than that, there's a feeling that actually a lot of these upgrades might be relevant for next season as well. And given that there is a consistency in the driver lineup for next year, and as far as things stand on the 20th of July 2025, we're still going to have the same technical and management group there in 2026. An upgrade now that works not only tells us that we're on the right route in terms of development, but also the most important thing is that it allows us to see that there's good correlation between the simulation tools, the wind tunnel, and what we see on track. And the deal here is, okay, so why haven't Ferrari just whacked this bit of kit directly on their Formula One car as soon as they possibly could, as soon as manufacturing allowed them to do that? Well, what they wanted to do was to be able to show that what they were seeing in the wind tunnel and in the simulator is actually replicated in a performance upgrade on track. And that for me is probably the most important part of this, because it allows us to see that next season will hopefully be on using the data in the right way, which is something that I think Ferrari have failed to do ever since Mattia Binotto was around, unfortunately. There you go. It's the only concession. It's the only concession I'm going to give you when it comes to Mattia.
They did that to me on purpose.
Did I?
That is so. It's such a low blow, man. It's such a. By the way, Mattia Binotto looks like the long lost Italian cousin of Mar from Home Alone. Just saying. Anyway, those of you that are Home Alone fans will get it. Yeah, I know, but come on. So what? The glasses are the distinguished. Come on, man. Anyway, I think to your point, this is an absolutely crucial upgrade, not for this season, right? Because clearly this season is out of hand. And I agree with you. Look, it would be nice to have Ferrari up there winning a few races, if only in that it helps make the McLaren rivalry a little bit more interesting in terms of the inter-team rivalry, I should say. And if that makes the World Drivers' Championship any more interesting, it would be fun to have a Lewis Hamilton on the top step of the podium for obvious reasons. But even from this season being what it is now, and listen, let's just zoom out to the macro here for a second, Shez, because Formula One now is a big sport. It is at its peak in terms of its commercial value and the amount of people watching there. So it would be nice to have a Ferrari in the mix, just because every race would be compelling in and of itself. Like, you're not going into every race saying, "Oh, is it going to be Lando or Oscar?" And we're gonna, pinpoint and criticize every silly mistake that they make, which they will make along the way, in their own style, and maybe one will make more than the other. But I think the lack of having another genuine competitor week in and week out it hurts the sport overall. So I think from that standpoint, if Ferrari have nailed it, it's a big if, and there are two drivers possibly in contention for top step of the podium, or at least podium contention, and then you kind of see where things go on a particular weekend. I think that's absolutely true. But to your point, this is all about next year, right? Because in reality, I think Lewis Hamilton gave voice to this too, right? It's all about focusing on next year. And so if they're going to get this right, they're really going to be able to run the car at a particular height, which has been their Achilles heel. And you knew it right after the double disqualification in China that this was going to be a problem that they couldn't solve up until the middle of the season. In a way, I am glad that they took their time and they didn't just sort of throw something at it earlier on, which they could have been doing. So they've taken their time. They've presumably worked out the kinks, and you would hope that things would happen and results would be much better. But then again, I tell you, all of you Tifosi fans, you're all in here, man. Be careful. I care about you.
Okay, so let's get into some technical bits and pieces. First of all, shout out to everyone in the chat. So M.A. Khan, what up? Neil Williams, hello. Yoko, hey. Nawal, good to see you again. Okay, you guys have got some questions, and I'm hoping that in the course of what we talk about, we will answer some of those, or at least our thoughts of this on some of these things. And before I say anything technical, massive disclaimer: I am so non-technically minded; it's unreal. I'm just trying to
you can't do that.
Unpick some of the things that we see out and about, and just try and make sense of it. So I think before we talk about what Ferrari have turned up with, we have to understand what the problem is. And Ferrari have been pretty quiet about this. But in broad terms, what we can understand is that the problem really arises from the rear of the car. That Ferrari have had a limitation in the amount of damping they can provide in the rear of the car. They can't keep the car stable, and they have had to essentially ride the car slightly higher than they would like. Peak performance is low, but to do that, the car needs to be stiff. And if they do that over the course of a race distance, the rear of the car gets pushed down. Great for performance, but ultimately it wears out the plank. And Ferrari haven't had the damper movement, the amount of movement that they need, the flexibility in that rear suspension, to be able to both run the car as low and stiff as they want and to not wear out the plank. Which is why what we've seen is, number one, in China, both cars were disqualified. But also in subsequent races, both drivers have either had to raise the rear ride height, which led to what happened in Japan, or more latterly, they've both been told to lift and coast early in the race, especially on high fuel, to be able to save the plank. And neither of them particularly like it. So what have Ferrari done? So what Ferrari have done is that they have moved to a rear suspension setup that is much more like what their rivals have got. There's more anti-squat or anti-lift, depending on which bit of the corner or bit of the track that you're talking about is involved. Okay, what does that look like? I've managed to get one picture. So here we go. What you've got in this picture is, on the left, the arrangement that Ferrari have currently. So you can see in the rear suspension, they have a pull rod rear suspension. And on the left is what they have currently. The two black arms are the upper wishbone elements, right? And I want you to really focus on the front wishbone element, which I have highlighted in red in the right-hand picture. That's what it looks like at the moment. So what Ferrari have done is that they have moved that front wishbone down to the position that you can see in green on the right-hand picture. That essentially is the anti-squat arrangement. And why is that important? Because what it means is that under acceleration, the rear of the car doesn't squat down quite as much. But more importantly, under braking, where the front of the car will dive down, the rear of the car will lift up. But this anti-squat or anti-lift rear suspension will allow them into corners under braking to keep the rear of the car level. Let me see if I can show you that. The rear of the car level. And that allows them to reach consistent downforce on the rear of the car. And that means that when they're braking and also under acceleration, the rear of the car isn't pushed down quite as hard, and it doesn't then wear out the plank, is my understanding of what that does. So a couple of questions. The first one is, why the heck haven't Ferrari done this from the beginning of the season? Why have they messed around with a rear suspension that is as flat as what you can see here? And I think the answer to that question. Hold on, let me get rid of this. Sorry, guys. Ammar, take over for a second.
It's working. We could see it.
Yeah, it's not that. Keep talking.
Oh man. Well, I mean, it's just tell me you don't understand how to explain all of these things without saying it, right? I mean, that's a great breakdown, Shez. But I'm here for the most exciting part, right? Which is, why didn't they get it right? Because my question to you would be, how do you know they're going to get it right again?
Well, I don't. But why did they not stick this on the car in the first place, right? Again, this is me trying to pick apart what I've read. But the first thing that Ferrari have wanted to do is to move the seat, this driving position, slightly backwards in the car. And maybe that's because of what they heard Lewis wanted from the Mercedes from last season. I don't know, but remember, Loic Serra wasn't involved in the development of this car, so perhaps it was just an organic thing that Ferrari wanted to do to allow their drivers to get a bit more feeling in the car. But what that's meant is that they've had to then shorten everything behind the driver. And in a Formula One car, the nuts and bolts in terms of power unit and gearbox are all behind the driver. So it's a mid-engine car. The engine sits behind the driver, and behind the engine sits the gearbox. And what they've had to do is shorten the gearbox slightly. Why is that? Well, what does that have to do with the rear suspension? Well, the gearbox acts as a stressed part of the rear suspension. Those wishbone arms that you can see in this picture are linked, are bolted directly onto the gearbox. So the positioning of that wishbone is dependent on the structure of the gearbox. And if the gearbox is shorter, then you're limited in where you can bolt on that front suspension or that front wishbone. So what Ferrari have done is that they've not just changed the rear suspension, they've also messed around with the gearbox as well, the structure of the gearbox, the casing of the gearbox, to allow them to be able to bolt on that front wishbone where they want it. And that hopefully will allow them to run that anti-squat, anti-lift rear suspension, giving them more stability in the corners as they're going into a corner. It should mean that they can then run the car optimally where they want it without risk of the car just squatting down under acceleration or lifting abruptly under braking and either wearing out the plank or not giving them the downforce that they were expecting as they go into a corner. In short, it should give them more control, give them the feeling, the drivers that is, what they want. Somebody asked about the power steering. So that is something that was changed as well. Again, what we've heard is that last season there were two routes in which the power steering could have gone. Charles Leclerc had a preference and Carlos Sainz had a preference, and essentially Ferrari went down Carlos's route. Lewis apparently has turned up and said, "What the heck? Like, I can't feel the front of the car." And it sounds like Charles just didn't have a voice in the team to be able to tell them that he felt the same way. But they've now changed the power steering back towards something that Charles and Lewis both want. And we know, if you look back at some of our videos in the early part of this season, we talked about the fact that Ferrari didn't go for a big anti-dive front suspension because that loses your feeling. It might keep the platform stable, but your drivers don't have the same feeling. And the power steering here, I think, goes hand in hand with that. And if you looked at sort of what Lewis especially was struggling with in Silverstone in the last race, what he was complaining about was the fact that he just couldn't get the car turned in, didn't have the feeling on the front end, and this power steering change should help the team with that. Okay, so anyway, that for me is that's a sort of quick or brief as I can technical breakdown of what the Mugello upgrades are about. But Ammar, going back to what we just talked about, we're going to Spa. We're going to have a heap of high speed and low speed corners. It's a great test of car and driver. And if these upgrades, as we've had them explained, are to work, this is the track where they're going to work. Are they going to work? Are we going to see a turnaround? Is it going to be as quick as that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, the simple answer, and by the way, I don't want to dismiss everything that you just said, Shez, because what you explained was great. It seemed like in the middle though there was a little bit of an echo. So maybe just take a moment there. Shez, your explanation of all the changes, technical, make all the sense in the world, right? And again, I would stress that it's a good thing that Ferrari took their time to try to figure these things out versus just throwing stuff against the wall. I think the most revealing thing for me, Shez, isn't any of the technical items. I think the most revealing thing is the power steering issue, which is kind of crazy because we're going to try to put two and two together here. But Charles has been talking for the last couple of races about a a mystery issue, right? And that's what we want to call it. That has caused him to. I don't think he said underperform, but I'm going to say that he underperformed. And that also evidently aligns with Lewis's concerns about the way the car handles and how we feel. And I think the most revealing part in that is that evidently Ferrari went in Carlos's direction in trying to design the power steering issue, right? Or whatever you want to call it, or try to address it. And I find that to be a fascinating thing because the one criticism that has there been for Charles is his lack of voicing his concerns or maybe trying to move development. And look, I'm not going to hold any driver accountable in the way that I think some harsh critics are. I say this for George too. Like, I mean, it's part of the team's job to be able to mesh with the driver. And sure, a driver has to speak up, and perhaps there is room for improvement there. But I find it fascinating that Ferrari listened to Carlos and not Charles. And evidently this is all kind of borne out. Like they needed a seven-time champion to tell them that they were doing something wrong. Like I just don't even understand what they were doing there, especially if they knew they were going to let Carlos go. What are you going to say?
So look, the deal here is twofold, and hopefully my sound is back to normal.
I think you're better now. Yeah, I think you're better.
Just
now.
let me know in the comments if the sound is back again. But the what you're saying isn't wrong, right? I think Charles maybe does lack a little bit in terms of his voice within the team, but look at what Ferrari did last season, right? They came to within 14 points of winning the Constructors' Championship, right? And they probably could have done it without certain things happening. Baku, I'm looking at you. And that
Carlos.
That was Carlos, wasn't it? But actually, in that time, even with the power steering set up in the way that they had it, Charles was the quicker driver, right? Carlos had his weekends, but in general, Charles was the quicker driver. And when a car is working on track, you're not going to change the development to a different direction, even if your driver is telling you that they don't necessarily love it. Best example of that, Max Verstappen, Red Bull, 2023 onwards. The car isn't working. It's not going as it's not giving us the feeling that we want. Red Bull is sitting there going, well, you're getting results out of it, and you're still winning the championship, so we're not going to change our development route. What's to say Ferrari didn't do exactly the same thing last season? But now, again, you reach a critical point within that development where you've taken that power steering as far as it's possibly going to go, and you take a bit of pain in the period of time where you're realizing that. And now when you've got another voice within the team saying, what the heck are you doing? Listen to Charles, listen to me. You go ahead and do it. And this is all part of a big range of upgrades because this car hasn't been working this season.
I think the issue again is not the tactics, right, and the technicalities of things. The issue here is philosophy, right? And what I was trying to say earlier, Shez, is it took Ferrari, and it's still taking them, a seven-time champion, to tell them some of the more fundamental things that they should know, right? And I don't know how much blame we place on Fred Vasseur. I mean, there's probably a good level of accountability in there, Shez, because it's not a question of, well, hang on. Whoa, hang on. I'm not saying fire him, but
this has to be.
Let me finish.
I try not to interrupt you very often, but this has come up so many times, right? The whole Charles Leclerc doesn't get listened to. It must be Fred Vasseur's fault. Charles Leclerc.
I did say that.
Charles Leclerc, you did. You literally just said that he needs to be held accountable. The words came out of your mouth.
There is a level of accountability there,
exactly. I.e. is Fred's fault. But
a level of accountability doesn't mean sack him.
Charles Leclerc. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Charles Leclerc has been in this team since 2019. He has been through three changes of Ferrari management. And the argument has been exactly the same from day one, that Ferrari have got this guy that they are basically basing their entire future on, but they are not listening to him. Three different management teams have been in Ferrari and done the same thing. So perhaps, Ammar, the fault isn't with the team. It's maybe with Charles.
Okay, so you missed my point. I think you jumped on me saying Fred and accountability, right? But I see what you're doing there. It's fine. No one is saying that Charles is about blame. Look, when you stink, everyone is to be blamed, right? And I'm looking at this as a pie chart of where blame goes, right? And I think Fred deserves a piece of the pie. Now, a lot of this, again, let me finish what I was trying to say, is it's not about tactics, it's not even about strategy, it's about philosophy. And what Ferrari have shown you time and time again over the last now 2 decades, you can say, since John Todt left. I mean, I know it's not exactly 2 decades, is that they lack a fundamental philosophy and a set of philosophical systems that guide how they develop a car, how they listen to their drivers, how they account for the unknown, how they work on race days, how they strategize when there's racing changing conditions, a la rain, no rain. I mean, Silverstone, great example of that, right? They lack a sort of a set of sort of a moral compass, if you will, in this case. And moral's not the right word, a compass that says this is who we are as a team. Look, and I just have to pick on Red Bull as an example. Yes, they've gotten it wrong over the last few months, but every time they seem to gamble, it makes sense. What Ferrari does doesn't make sense. So again, I bring this back to this whole power steering issue. Charles is responsible for voicing his opinion. Maybe he needs to be more stern with his words. Maybe he needs to be more stern with the way he designs his contract. And we know what the Charles and Ferrari connections are that go back to Jules Bianchi. Like that's how far this goes. So maybe there's a component of emotion. There's a component of irrationality that sort of drives both of them, and they're equally responsible in said relationship. With Lewis Hamilton does not have to worry about, right? He's a seven-time champion. He is here. He is the gold standard when it comes to Formula One racing today, outside of Max Verstappen, right? So there's that. My question to you, Shez, if you know Carlos was leaving, and you knew that pretty earlier on, like, why would you decide to listen to him? Like, I don't even understand that. Like, what were you going to do there? Like, he was not going to be here. You knew this before last season started.
Ammar, 6 words. Because it made the car faster.
In the interim.
Yeah, but it made the car faster. So
And
why would they not do it? Like you're not looking at the
Shez,
future.
come on.
You're looking at the here and now. That power
But
steering.
when you have the other guy in the team telling you this is
But
not
he was
how I
going
wanted to
faster
go.
with that power steering system. So why would they change it? I don't understand. But now you've got both drivers not liking it. So yeah, it makes sense to change it. And they clearly reached a point in which there was a critical mass of evidence that meant that these guys weren't able to deal with that power steering. I think you're latching onto his power steering as a bit of a red herring. But the Charles point is apt. Like Charles, the problem with him is, and I've said this before, is that he has been at that team so long now that he is part of the problem, right? The entire Ferrari problem, as you say about philosophy, he is part and parcel of it. He's just one of them. The drivers that you have talked about, Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton, come from outside that system. And Ferrari depend upon drivers like that to give them an outsider's perspective because they can't rely on Charles to do that. He's too ensconced within the team. But
Yeah,
but
I think that's fair.
but it is true that when they have followed Charles' overall preferences, they have done well. Just look at what they did towards the end of 2023 and what they did into 2024 when they followed the philosophy that he wanted. It actually made Carlos quicker too. So
Yeah, but it could have made anyone else quicker too.
he
Like, I mean,
can,
that's
he
I mean,
can
it's
have
not
a
ubiquitous
positive,
in that
but he
regard, right?
can have a positive
Right,
input
agree.
on
But this is
the
why I
team.
say philosophy matters, right? Chess, you can criticize Red Bull all you want for where they're at today, but
Mate,
them placing their eggs in the Max basket has shown them nothing but immense success over the last 4 years. Yes,
but
this year is
Ferrari are a different team depending on who is managing them, right?
I know,
The
but that's what
same
I'm arguing.
name, is over
Well,
over
that's
the
why no one's
billboard,
bigger than
but
Ferrari.
it's a different team that comes in and either makes a success of it or makes a sham of it. And when those periods of success have happened, Ferrari haven't been able to integrate that DNA into the inner
Yeah.
working of their
Can
team in the way that, say, McLaren or William, well, and in fact,
Ha!
even those teams, the same name is above the board, but it's needed a new management to bring the best out of them. But Ferrari keep bouncing between different management philosophies.
Can I just quickly close the loop on something
Yeah,
you latched
please.
onto about Fred Vasseur? Let me be on the record again. I am critical of Fred Vasseur at times, but I do not for a second believe that he should be let go. I mean, that would be the most dumbest decision that Ferrari could make at this point. Like that, you cannot have, even if you brought Toto Wolff, even if you brought John Todd back and Ross Brown back, I'd say, no, you cannot do that right now, because what Fred is trying to do is essentially correct these errors. He is trying to set up a framework that will allow Ferrari to be competitive on track, off track, in development, not in development throughout the year. And you got to give somebody some time. If you have not had success for decades now, right? And decades is accurate. You need to give somebody at least half a decade to change your old habits. These habits do not change overnight. You do not get good people to work with you overnight and find success. Like, you might hit a stroke of luck here and there every once in a while. You might have a good run, but in order to be competitive, season in and season out, you need stability, and you need to let Fred build. And so the latest rumors were they were trying to find somebody that would be a go between Fred and upper management. I would argue that that guy is already there. Let Fred do his job. Let him set up all the departments that he needs to. Let him go out and get people, which Ferrari have not had for a while too. So there is a little bit of everything that adds to it. So I just wanted to close my point out that I'm not here in the fire Fred camp. I'm actually here in the keep Fred camp, right? Like, that's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I would argue at the moment is that, let's turn that up. What I would argue at the moment is that actually what Ferrari are doing is exactly what you have asked them to do, right? They're taking the data that they have in front of them. They're taking the input from the two drivers, both of them, both with differing experience, putting them both in the sim, putting them both on track, and then coming up with a physical, tangible upgrade that is related to what their drivers have said they felt, right? That's using the data and then plugging it into the real world. And they're doing it, I think, in a systematic way, something that they failed to do previously. And perhaps that's a new technical team with Loic Serra coming in and using some of the sort of the methods that he's taken from the successful years at Mercedes and going, okay, this is what we saw in the sim. This is what we've seen in the wind tunnel. This is what we need to see on track before we put it on the car in anger. Let's use one of our filming days, because we've still got one, to see if what we're seeing in the wind tunnel and in the sim actually correlates well on track. That's how science works. That's how physics works. That's how you run an experiment. Right, this is the first time I've seen Ferrari in the last sort of, what is F1 if it's not a giant science project, mate? That's like, I hate to break it to you, but that is what Formula One is. It's a bunch of people with a heap of cash doing science projects. But this is how you get your science project to work, and it's the first time in 5 or 6 seasons where I've seen them at least try and use the data they've got in a sensible way. And that to me gives me some hope that actually this will work on track and we'll get a tangible uplift in performance. And perhaps that will, if it's fixed the problem that they have been talking about or not talking about, as the case may be, then perhaps we'll actually see some wins on track. That's what I want, and that's what I'm hoping for.
And I think you can give Fred credit for this if this is actually something that works out. I mean, he has been under fire, I would say unfairly, particularly from the Italian media. And I'm using air quotes because, guys, we're going to have this discussion, Shez, another day. What actually constitute media and journalism? Because I'm seeing a lot of like Twitter accounts come up with all kinds of sources, news. But Fred has been under pressure, under fire for reasons that I just do not understand why, because all that ails Ferrari right now are all the bad habits that have been taking place for decades now. And so this is going to take some time. And so if Fred has actually nailed this, and maybe there are 10 wins out of 12,
Ammar, it's even more, yeah. There you go. See, I knew you'd warm to Mattia's way of thinking.
It's Sunday, come on.
But it's more than that. The reason I am really upset with the words that are coming out of the Italian media about Fred and his his stability within that team, his vulnerability within that team, is that all of the decisions that were made about the SF25 and the SF24 before that were from a technical team that Fred inherited. And as soon as that team have gone and they've been replaced by a team
Mattia.
that Fred actually, went out and hired himself, that's the point at which we're talking about him going. When that team are starting to actually make their presence felt and putting the upgrades on the car, that's the point at which we're saying Fred needs to go. That to me doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And honestly, like even if you looked around the landscape here, I mean, Christian Horner just got fired, right? But he's had success largely because Red Bull have been stable for a long time. Now, okay, all things come to an end, good and bad, right? But Fred has just started, like, and he should, if anything, in this next contract extension, get all the safety net that he can get. No pressure, no sort of these walking on eggshell type of situations. And even Toto Wolff added to this, right? Fred needs all the comfort that he can get to make mistakes but not fail. And if he does fail eventually, then you let him go at a different point. But you're at a crucial point right now where, let's say these correlation issues are finally improved and Ferrari's on top of it, and we're going into a new rule set next year. There are changes happening with the floor of the car, and we'll talk about that on another day. But you want to have as much stability. You have a 7-time champion. You have your own prodigy that's been with the team for, I think, 7 years now, Shez. Did you say 6 or 7? Whatever it was. But a long time. And you have things that are presumably going to get better from here on out. So while I want to celebrate just yet, I'll have to wait and see. But let's just hope that they're competitive, man, Shez. And all I'm asking for is 10 out of 12 wins. I don't think that's too much to ask, but maybe you'll tell me otherwise.
10 out of 12 definitely sounds realistic. Definitely sounds like a Ferrari claim anyway.
10 wins, we're in the championship, baby.
Yeah. Let's go. I just want to see a win. I just want to see that, in a high speed track, they're not being asked to. They're not in a track with high speed corners, let's say, like Spa, that we're not going to see them telling both their drivers over the radio to lift and coast. That we're not seeing Charles having to put an extreme setup on his car, which is what they've had to do up until now, with a really light rear end. They can move to a more normal setup, one that they're both comfortable with, that will allow them to exploit the potential that Fred keeps telling us is in this car. That's all this is about. It's about unlocking the potential that 99% change was supposed to do.
You know what else? You know what else? Ferrari have to be better on Sundays too, and I think that still remains a bit of a question mark.
I don't think Silverstone was that bad. I think the reason that Lewis didn't get third was ultimately because of the pace of the car. And you could say, he should have been on the softs, or he should have not pitted, for example. But all of those things come with risk, and actually I think Ferrari managed that well. And actually splitting the strategies at the beginning of the race wasn't necessarily the dumbest thing to do. I think Charles just doesn't get on with Silverstone, and again there was a pace problem there. I think in general Ferrari's strategy hasn't been the disaster class people make it out to be. But yes, I agree. There has to be a test of it when they're actually in the running for a win.
Yeah.
Right.
And no better time than to do that over the next 6 months, like whatever, just get it out of your system, and then we'll see what next year looks like.
Right, I want to see if there's any questions that anyone wants to
Shez, how do people get a hold of you in Hungary? I need to let them know.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be in Hungary. Yeah, guys, if any of you are actually in Hungary, come find me. Me and
how would they find you, Shez? Like, what do you like? You're gonna be on the jumbotron or something? Like, you're gonna do the Coldplay thing with?
Oh yeah, that'd be great. I won't be cheating on anybody, but you can definitely find me out there.
I mean, you are not taking me there, so there's that. I mean, there is proverbial cheating happening as far as this show goes. Yeah.
That is true. Yes, you'll find friend of the channel BackSTB with me.
There you go.
We'll probably we'll try and put some random content out there while we're there. But if you see us on any of our random content and you recognise some of the stuff in the background, come find us. It would be awesome to see you.
We'll put out stuff on there. Yeah.
I do want to try and answer some of the questions in the chat. I think there was some stuff about the power steering, which I think we've tried to
covered,
answer. Yeah. There's some stuff about next year's regulations. Ammar, this is definitely something that I want to put a pin in because I think maybe later in the week maybe Monday or Tuesday, we will have a conversation about next year's regulations before we have to inevitably talk about what announcements or not are going to come out in Spa. Look out for that.
Are there announcements? Yeah. What kind of announcements is it? Can I just tell you this? I mean, I find this very amusing as a neutral party to the Russell Verstappen Toto Wolff love triangle
You're
that
not
is,
neutral.
right?
There's nothing neutral
Come on.
about your views.
I am definitely. We just got, look at this. There's a Ferrari behind my head. I think most people can't see it, but whatever. You know, somebody's going to be really mad hurt, like mad hurt. Like it's the Russell camp or the Verstappen camp that are just going to be reeling after all of this. I mean, we've been tracking yachts and we've been trying to decipher, you know, all kinds of messages and like what's going on. Like somebody's, come on, give us your take, Shez. If the announcement is coming out, what do you think is happening?
You're gonna have to wait till Wednesday.
I'm gonna have to wait until Wednesday.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
teaser.
yeah. But now that we've moved fully to live streams, it seems you guys can join us for all the fun. And as usual, please like, please subscribe. These lives have been so much more fun than recording a video and editing them afterwards. I'm not going to lie.
A lot less work too.
Please leave some comments after the video too. We'll respond to as many as we possibly can. And we will see you guys in the next one.
And look for Shez in the Jumbotron. That's what the comments are saying, Jumbotron.
Oh, the Jumbotron. Okay.
I want you and Baxi to be out there. Yeah,
yeah,
let's go.
Well, I'm not hugging Baxi. That's not going to happen. Anyway, see you later, guys.
No, again, nothing wrong.